Alrighty guys, a very warm welcome to the video. Today we're going to be discussing the Ironman 70.3 World Championships, and with a particular focus mainly just on Kristian Blummenfelt and his run in particular, which he uploaded to Strava just recently. The race has only just finished a few hours ago. Kristian Blummenfelt took out the whole event with a 3 hour 37 minute half Ironman, or 70.3. And this is his run, and I really want to emphasize some of these splits and just kind of go through it and unpack it a little bit. He doesn't have heart rate or anything like that, but we can just look at the pace, we can look at the cadence, and have a think about why this is so impressive when we put it in the context, in any context, but when we put it particularly in the context of 3 weeks post Kona. Remember, Kristian was literally carried off on a stretcher after Kona. He was fine, but obviously just pushed his body to the absolute limits and required medical assistance. He was in, very distressed, very fatigued, tired, etc. So only 3 weeks later, he's basically come out and he's run a 1 hour, 11 minute, 39 second half marathon on a hilly course, average pace of 5:28 per mile. This is his Strava overview of his run, so 21.19. And on his Strava, obviously, it depends on when you start and stop your watch, so it's always going to be a bit varied with the distance and the time compared to the actual race event or the official results. But nonetheless, let's have a look at some splits and generally just the overview of the whole thing. So the main thing I really want to think about, or not think about, but draw attention to, is these splits here. So kilometer 1, obviously through till 21, which is the half marathon. He started off quite conservatively. He mentioned in the pre-race conference that he was worried about cramping. So a 3:45 minute per kilometer. Obviously, when we look at the elevation grade as well, let's just have a quick look at the elevation grade before we jump into it. Essentially, we're running uphill, downhill, uphill, downhill. So 2 times through, up and down. Basically, not a lot of flat. So we go to the overview and we go to the splits. So he's going uphill for the most part here for the first 5 odd Ks. 3:45, 3:33, 3:40, 3:37, 3:32. So moving pretty well. And then he consistently, 3:06, 3:15, 3:15, 3:11, And this is when he was being challenged very heavily and impressively by Ben Canute, who had an absolutely amazing race and an amazing run. He bridged a 20 or 30-second gap out of transition in the first few kilometers to get onto Kristian, and then passed him at the end. Well, not passed him at the end, but passed him soon after, and then led him for most of the, a fair chunk of the run. And then Kristian really attacked on this final descent down here. And this is where it gets crazy. So from 17 kilometers to 20 kilometers, or mainly just these 3 kilometers in here, when Kristian really broke away, obviously downhill, but 2 hours, I always do this, 2:56, 3:02, 3:58, 2:58. So 2:56, 3:02, 2:58. There's 3 kilometers there under an average of 3 minutes per kilometer, sub 3 minutes per kilometer. And then we can have a look at his peak paces. 2:46 for 400, 2:55 for 1 kilometer, 2:57 for a mile, 2:58 for 3 kilometers, and 3:04 pace for 5 kilometers. So during the half marathon, he has run a 15:20, at 3:04 minute per kilometer, a 15-minute 25 kilometer. Granted downhill, but on the back end of the half marathon. This is in the context of racing Kona 3 weeks earlier. So think about the fatigue and how long it takes people generally to recover from an Ironman. We know that Magnus Ditlev also raced and had a fantastic race coming in third. He ran a 1:14:07. Gustav, who won Kona, didn't have a great race at all, but he mentioned he'd been quite fatigued, quite sick, really struggled with the kind of come down of Kona. And I've done a previous video on that if you want to go back and check that out. But essentially, to put in this level of performance 3 weeks after such a big event, pushing to the absolute limit, goes to show what a resilient machine this guy really is. To be running these paces, obviously downhill, but even just to have and think about the leg speed that requires, 256, 302, 258 per kilometer for a peak 3K pace of 258 per kilometer and a peak 5 kilometer pace of 304 per kilometer. So obviously, he's come out on firing on all 12 cylinders and had a fantastic race. So to recap the top 5, we had Blummenfelt, we had Knut, we had Ditlev, we had Newt. I can't really pronounce that one. And we also had Funk as well. So let me know what you guys think. Very impressive nonetheless. And Kristian Blummenfelt can definitely do it all. But of course, I think he still wants that, elusive Kona title, which whether it be next year or the year after, I'm sure he will eventually get there on the Big Island. But 70.3 world champion and a very, very impressive performance nonetheless.